Hey everyone, it's Dr. A, and in this video, we're going to investigate the manner in which our bones undergo repair and remodeling. One of the things we know without question is that in general, as we transition from early adolescence to young adulthood, we tend to grow. And that growing or increase in height is due partially to our bones growing lengthwise. In anatomy, we refer to this lengthwise growth as interstitial growth, and we can summarize this process in 3 steps. But before we delve into those steps, it's important to note that the site of interstitial growth is only possible at the growth plate. Now, for our first step, we identify the formation of the growth plate in a long bone, which occurs via endochondral ossification. In our second step, the chondrocytes that are located within the growth plate increase in number through a process you may be familiar with called mitosis. This essentially lengthens the growth plate, pushing the epiphysis away from the diaphysis. In the third stage, the side of the epiphyseal plate closest to the diaphysis ossifies or becomes harder. And in addition to this, the epiphyseal plate returns to its original size. And at the end of this process, we have a bone that has increased in length. Now let's imagine we could see this process take place in real time. What we'd see are 4 zones of cellular activity at the growth plate. We have the reserve zone, the proliferative zone, the maturation hypertrophy zone, and the calcified matrix zone. So starting with the reserve zone, this is the area closest to the growth plate. It's the area that contains chondrocytes, but the chondrocytes in this area don't undergo mitosis. Instead, its job is to secure the growth plate to the bone tissue of the epiphysis. Now, as we move closer towards the diaphysis, we meet the proliferative zone. And it's here that we find chondrocytes actively engaging in mitosis. Again, this is the cell process that allows our cells to undergo growth and repair. It's essentially the primary zone in which interstitial growth occurs, considering it helps push the epiphysis away from the diaphysis. Again, moving closer to the diaphysis, we have the maturation hypertrophy zone, and this is the area in which our chondrocytes are larger in size and older in age. It's also here, during interstitial growth, that glycogen gives chondrocytes the energy they need to divide. Lipids help those cells swell and grow larger, and alkaline phosphatase, an enzyme, helps turn the cartilage into a framework that can be later replaced by bone. And lastly, we have the calcified matrix zone. Here, most of the chondrocytes are dead and have been replaced by bone tissue. This zone helps connect the epiphyseal plate to the diaphysis. So in a nutshell, the activity of interstitial growth occurs at both the proliferative and maturation hypertrophy zones. So now that we've reviewed the process for bone growth lengthwise, let's talk about how bones grow in width. And in anatomy, we refer to this as appositional growth. And as a quick side note, while we primarily see interstitial growth taking place during adolescence, appositional growth occurs throughout our lives. Now, in stage 1, within the medullary of the bone, we find osteoblast. And these cells begin secreting osteoid, which causes the compact bone to become thicker. And this leads to an increase of the concentric rings or lamella we find around the bone. And as this happens, stage 2 showcases that the diameter or width of the bone increases gradually. So in essence, the bone is being built outward, layer by layer, and at the same time, it is increasing in thickness as well. Now, in stage 3, as the outer diameter increases, something important is happening on the inside of the bone at the same time. Along the inner surface, called the endosteum, osteoclasts are actively breaking down bone. This process enlarges the medullary cavity, preventing the bone from becoming too thick or too heavy as it grows. When these two processes occur together, osteoblast adding bone on the outside and osteoclast removing bone on the inside, the result is a bone that is larger in diameter but still strong and efficient. This allows compact bone to maintain an appropriate thickness and better able to assist bending and a variety of stresses. So appositional growth isn't just about making bones bigger, it's about making them stronger while preserving balance and function. Now let's shift our focus for just a moment to what happens when our bones encounter forces that are too great for it to withstand. In those events, we end up with fractures. And we'll take a couple of moments to briefly describe some of the common types. So let's start with a closed fracture. This occurs when the bone has not broken through the skin. Comparatively, we also have open fractures. This occurs when a fracture has broken through the skin. And with transverse fractures, these are fractures in which there is a clear fracture across a given bone. We also have spiral fractures, which occur due to some type of twisting or rotational force. We'll typically see these fractures wrap around a given bone as well. Another type of fracture we may come across is a comminuted fracture. These are fractures in which a bone or pieces of a bone are broken down into small fragments, and typically we look for at least 3 or more fragments to give it this description. Next are impacted fractures. These are fractures in which one part of the bone is driven into another part of the bone. There are also green stick fractures. These types of fractures are most common among children, and specifically, these are best described as partial fractures, or fractures that don't occur all the way through the bone. And lastly, there are oblique fractures. These are types of fractures that occur diagonally or at a slanted angle. So now that we have an idea about fractures, let's walk through a brief overview regarding how fractures are healed. And we'll lay this out in 4 stages. So let's start with stage 1. Prior to the fracture occurring, there has to be some force that acts on the bone. In other words, there's some force that's applied to the bone that is greater than the bone can withstand. This force damages not only the bone, but the periosteum and its blood vessels. This causes internal damage and bleeding occurs inside of the bone, leading to what we call a hematoma formation. In stage 2, we have the deposit of fibroblasts in the fractured area. These are specialized cells that help to create and deposit collagen, which is a key element to all tissues, helping to provide them with the strength and resiliency they need. Following this, chondrocytes are deposited into the area, and these chondrocytes make cartilage, and this clears way for new blood vessel formation to occur, which is called angiogenesis, and this helps to further support bone growth. Now, it's at this time that these deposits have made what we call a soft callus, which is analogous to a firm, gelatinous area covering the site of the fracture. In stage 3, this soft callus that we noted a moment ago becomes harder, and in and around this time, osteoblasts are deposited into the area, helping to build new bone tissue. And at the end of this stage, we now have a bony callus formation, which is beginning to look like the bone prior to the injury. And finally, in our 4th stage, which we refer to as the bone remodeling stage, osteoclasts come into the area and clean up any excess or damaged tissue. Now, the bone is beginning to better resemble its previous appearance before injury. And the benefit of this process is that this bone, as it relates to where the fracture was, will become stronger than it was prior to the injury. Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful. I'll look forward to connecting with you again in the next one.